So hello to Daniel on Digital Anthropos. Today we're gonna have a lot of interesting discussions about his recent involvement in, let's say, the more humanistic approach in software development. So, hi Daniel, can you say something about yourself?
Hi, Adi. No idea, actually. This is this is always complicated to come with a video, but yeah, the short version is that I like to learn, to travel, and to have fun. That will be the shortest version of my bio, something like that.
We've met each other at more events from the software crafting community, and also at the ITCAN conference from that we organized in Bucharest. And I always like this approach that you had, very focused on people, and that's why I think I'd like to discuss now with you about how you feel that we should behave as people, and what are the more human things that we need to talk about when we talk about software development, but not necessarily also the impact of software that has overall in society.
Yeah, I think you mentioned what we should do as a human beings, and I mean, of course, it will be so brave for me, to say what people need to do. I have no idea.
Yeah, at least what you're doing, or what you see others are doing and that you like,
Exactly. So there is this question, right? I have recently read an article that was a leader as a coach, something like that, and it was this question, like how can I help you? And I think that if more humans would do that question every day, more times to more people, things would go, in a better way. At least it's going in a way better way for me and the people who I interact, where in environments where this question is like frequently used. So how can I help you? This interaction between people, if we think about interaction between software and the world, will be how can this software help the world, or how is it helping, or even how it is not helping,
Yeah.
So these kind of questions about help, about giving, what are we giving, I think they are important.
So empathy, basically trying to develop a sense of empathy, but that means also understanding others. And at least when we talk about software development, you have this issue that people who've been doing that, they have been working a lot with computers and not that much with humans. So how do we overcome this situation?
Well, I don't know. Again, I am not anyone to say people what they should do. I can speak by my personal experience and what helped me a lot, and it's helping me a lot, right? And that is to travel. I said I like to learn, I like to travel, and I like to have fun. So if you put these things together, and you can easily put it, for example, taking my case of backpacking around the world, right? You can learn, you can travel, and you can have fun at the same time, and you are constantly exposed to different environments, to different languages, to different cultures, to different musics, to different instruments, to different jokes, to different I don't know, everything, the idiosyncrasy of the places. So when you are constantly put into that, you develop a certain degree of empathy, and you understand that the place you were born, maybe there is some culture, but that doesn't mean that is the normal culture, that's the culture in that place. If you go some kilometers north or west or whatever, there is a different culture and different socially accepted stuff. So I think that by constantly traveling, moving around, and having deep conversations about different topics, like not only technology or not only software, as you said, but about anything, really helps, like opening the mind and developing new neural connections that then come super handy in empathetic, or at least try to.
So you're saying that travel for you has helped you being more empathetic, and especially because you have this conversation with people, because you can always travel but not do that, right? You can travel and be very superficial.
That's, I mean, traveling, it's crazy. I can tell you many anecdotes, right? The one that comes to my mind is in this beautiful beach in Sardinia, right? I really like to go to beaches and spend time in nature and this stuff. And I was in that beach, you know, I slept there. So I, waking up in the morning, and I started seeing some people coming to the beach. It was like 9 a.m. or whatever. I was horrified by what I saw that day. I saw couples, you know, running with the mobile phone in the hand all the time, you know, take picture, take picture, take picture. Oh, we have to go to the next one. Running, super stressed, you know, not even looking around with a device. And anecdotes like that over the years, like in every conditions, people doing scuba diving in the Philippines. That was crazy how people treat the environment. And so, of course, there is a difference in the way you travel, right? And the way you interact with the places. I really love to take organic approach and a local approach. So I always try to stay with people from the place, doing, for example, couch surfing instead of going to a hotel or booking a hotel. Except when the conference organizers book it for you. Thank you for that take.
Sure.
But this is the idea, and to go to the places where the local eat food, and to talk with the locals about things that local normally speak and whatever. If you travel and you go to I mean, if you're from Italy and you go to the Italian restaurant in front of your hotel with touristic prices and stuff, of course the learning experience will be not so effective.
Yeah, I like learning, especially when traveling, learning about their culture or small stories from that specific area or whatever people feel like, or a bit of history, and I like to learn more about that. And in time when, well, I used to do a lot of traveling a few years back, and in time I observed that there are a lot of differences in how people behave because of that history, of that local history. So I think it's easier to understand the people from there if you have this experience about their history and about their traditions, or
Of course, completely. That's it. And the more places that you visit, the more people you talk with. It's amazing. I mean, I recently reading a book called Creative Confidence. That's not in the list that I shared with you. That's another one amazing from the folks from Open IDEO. It's crazy, and they speak about the need of being constantly exposed to different environments, you know, in order to develop this creativity. And this helps a lot. I mean, there is so many benefits of traveling. I can also talk about the specifics of traveling alone or backpacking alone, how it's amazing to see all these small interactions in all these hitchhiking experiences. I don't know, there is so many beautiful things that, in my opinion, it help you grow as a human being or evolve a lot.
So, going a bit back to software and traveling, you mentioned that before we started recording, that you had this travel experience going in working with other people, right? Or did I get that wrong?
No, this is true. Like back in 2017, I was leaving Babel, my company at that moment, where I was working as software engineer. And I remember was in a Socrates event, software crafting and testing open space in Canary Islands. I was talking with Carlos Ble. Carlos is an amazing person. Do you know Carlos, right?
Yeah, of course. He's a very nice guy.
He's a very nice guy. And I remember talking with him, he asked me, what are you doing next? And I say, no idea. I mentioned to him that I wanted to travel and to do some open source, maybe, you know, or to take time to read books and whatever. So he mentioned Corey Haines, and he mentioned to me the pair programming tool that was new to me back in the days. And I was like, wow, I was really amazed, you know, when I took a look and say, I will try to do this. But instead of going pair programming with people, I will try to go facilitating coding dojos or giving talks or whatever the communities want me to do or to share. So yeah, I had the chance to do that, and during the next 6 months, I was visiting communities around Europe, and facilitating coding dojos or giving some talks. And yeah, it was a really nice experience, and I learned a lot, of course, from it.
Yeah, I've done that for many years. I guess a lot of people from Europe know me from this stuff, and I saw that it's very interesting to see that, there are things that everybody does. When you're going to, to France, the the French programmers say, oh, only French programmers do that. Say, no, everybody does that, you know. Don't be then harsh on yourself. It's just being human. So I don't know, maybe you can learn about this. So there are these things that we kind of take like, no, we feel like they're bad, and we say only we're doing this. But then while you start traveling, you see, especially in very specific context of software development, coding and stuff, that they are the same. And then you start seeing also specific behaviors depending on the culture or the country or the language, or so I found that very interesting while traveling, that in fact we're not that different. We're more similar than different, in fact, when you talk about this subgroup of software development.
It's true, but as you say, also the specifics, like the details from place to place, when you start to identify the patterns and then try to identify the differences or the things that break from the pattern, it's really interesting. I remember the transition from a coding dojo in Belgrade, in Serbia. Thank you, Dragan, by the way, for hosting me there. It was amazing to share time with you, Fox. And then I switched. The next one, I think it was in Mallorca, in Spain, you know, and the reaction. I am a person that likes to joke frequently, to make jokes, and the reaction from the people in Serbia, that they was really different to the reaction of the people in Mallorca. That they, you know, I was new back in the days into the facilitation world, so I didn't have a lot of experience, and I quickly realized how it's important to adapt to your audience.
That's true. So I learned, not necessarily the hard way, but I also learned by pairing with other people when facilitating, that in the beginning, if you don't know the audience, it's very important to throw some anchors and see how they react to softer things. So and see if they react to some of that stuff, maybe you can go deeper. If they react badly, just stop. So there are things that are not easily observed, but as a facilitator or as a trainer, you need to do that. So that's very interesting. Also with joking, what I learned from a friend who's a psychologist, that joking is very specific to the culture. And I'm not talking about culture here like a country or a language, but it can be very specific to a certain area where people just don't like joking, or they aren't used to joking that much, while in other they are. So joking is complicated.
It's really complicated, and that makes my whole life really complicated, because I really like to joke, and I am traveling like pretty much all the time, you know, to different countries and continents. So I require to adapt a little bit, but I try to not lose my essence, you know, like to express how I am naturally. So it's interesting, and that's probably a reason why people will never like my coding dojos or my talks outside of Spain.
Well, you never know. I think you need to try more.
I'm joking.
Yeah. So it's interesting about, you know, talking about these exercises, like these practice exercises, like dojos and katas and code trees, things that you talked about. How did you feel when doing this tour, that people reacted? Did you feel any difference from a group or the other on the things that you tried, or the how they behaved to the certain types of exercises or certain type of communicating to them?
I identified one thing. I mean, before starting to facilitate, I was a lot of years attending different events, attending as participant, and already analyzing the behavior of different groups of people, right? And in my life as a facilitator or whatever, was a before and after an event in Berlin. That was with the software crafting community in Berlin. By the way, I take the chance to send a friendly message, an invitation to the software crafting community in Berlin to change the name and use a more inclusive approach. I think that's documented pretty good. So yeah, that was my friendly message to that community. I was facilitating an event there, and the discussion go completely off hands. I always love to mix practical exercises where participants code, either doing pair programming or mob programming or whatever, and then discussion time, discussion blocks, right? That was horrible. That day, that experience was not good at all. Like some powerful people took control of the conversation. I know that you know pretty good what I am talking about, and that was horrible. Afterwards, I immediately started to apply what is called liberating structures. I don't know if you're familiar with the term.
I am, but maybe we can go deeper into that after.
Okay, it's like a facilitation techniques or structures, activities that you can use to control a little bit what happens there, right?
Yeah.
And that was amazing. Once I started using constantly liberating structures to moderate the discussion time in my activities, the whole scenario changes a lot. And this happened in Berlin. I don't know why not before in that way, but it was because there was senior people, experienced people. So back to your question, have you noticed difference? Yeah, I noticed a lot of difference between the average behavior from more junior people in comparison with more senior people.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting, because also all these events, in my opinion, are geared towards more junior people or more beginner people. We are not normally inventing any new way to do TDD or a new way to do software development or whatever. We are doing exercises, simple exercises about the basics of some techniques of software development. So it's interesting to see the behavior of more senior people in those kind of environments. I don't know if you have also experiences. Well, I am pretty sure that you do.
Yeah. But I do. I think it's interesting to see that you see more rigidity in most of the cases with senior developers. I don't know if it's because of the age, or it's because of the pampering of the companies, of the organizations, telling them that you're good, you're very good, very good, you don't have that much to learn, we give you a big salary. So I don't know what are the reasons, but we don't need to generalize this. I've met senior developers, even like I was in a company where there was this developer. He was like 55. And he was so open. I was teaching him, 20 years younger, I was teaching him about unit testing on embedded systems and how to do test-driven development on embedded system. And he was very happy to learn and very open. So it's not, we don't need to generalize, but I do see that. I don't know what's the reason. I do have ideas, but...
No, but yeah, of course, without generalizing, but yeah, I would like to take this as I don't know how many people will take a look at this video, but yeah, an invitation to be open and to invite everyone surrounding you to be open, because being open is the only way to move forward in any case.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have our own blockages, right? That we put ourselves to be open. We are afraid typically. We have this social stigma of being senior. So if you're senior, you need to know everything. It's not possible to ask a question or to say, I don't know this.
That's really interesting. That relates with one of the books that I love and are important in the way I work and I understand things, which is The Fearless Organization by Amy Edmondson, right? This is about psychological safety, and in order to know if an environment is psychologically safe, a really good metric or data point is the number of questions. A number of the questions in open channels, like in public channels, right?
Yeah.
I don't know you, but in my experience as I don't know, employee, consultant, whatever, the number of questions is really, really, really low normally,
Yes.
And it's obvious that not everyone in that room is understanding what that people is talking about in the meeting or whatever, but the people are really afraid to ask.
Yeah, it's true. And Well, in my experience of organizational coach, when trying to transition in organizations, I was always trying to make things open, transparent, and improve this openness. Of course, some people have been there for tens of years, and you cannot change culture, but at least what you can do, try to make them behave in such a way that people are more open. But then you go a bit you go very deep into psychological coaching, trying to discuss with these people about their behavior and how sometimes just one or two people affect the behavior of the whole group, especially if they're managers or have a certain position of power.
Yeah, this is completely true. I think that if we talk about workplaces, because this also applies to coding dojos or to code retreats or whatever,
Sure.
It's an important role of the facilitator or facilitators, like to strive to try to create a psychologically safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, in my experience, it helps by being explicit about it. I start all my activities with a smiley, in the whiteboard, to explain that we are trying to have a good mood, a positive atmosphere, that we will not tolerate certain behaviors, etc., and explicitly mentions psychologically safe. But yeah, you can do that because you are in a position of power there as a facilitator, right? And as you say, if in a workplace there is important people that are not cooperating towards that or are actively destroying that, good luck. But it's a really complex topic. As you say, you should start doing psychological coaching. And I mean, I don't know you, but at least me, I haven't studied formally, psychology, so I don't feel prepared or even willing, to evolve.
Yeah. That's why I say it's complicated and quite a few times when I raised issues like that in organizations, I was talking with people from HR, and they told me, well, this is a problem of psychology, so the best way to solve this is to hire psychologists, and we cannot do that. We cannot help you with that. So
yeah, this is funny.
Even like they wouldn't interfere in that, even if it's HR.
There are 2 points here, I think, at least. One, HR, the name is already suspicious, right?
Yes, it is. I don't like it, but that's how we use it.
Well, this is the way like some people use it. Unfortunately, we are, or more and more environments are changing and understanding that it's not a good idea to start things off if we mention a department called human resources. That's really suspicious.
Yeah, but the old ways die. Don't die. Keep like that. Keep going like that. For one, I'm not a resource, and even like I was talking to explaining some top management people that if you tell people your resources, then if they should be able to tell you that you're overhead.
Exactly. That's a sticker I took from a Socrates event in the Linnovate office, and it's amazing from Linnovate. If you call me a resource, I am calling you overhead. I love it.
It's like a meme that I don't know where it's from, but I heard it way back a lot of years ago, and I keep using it because it's very strong.
Yeah, it's very nice. So that's one point. And the second point is this about the psychologist. When I started, like my most recent professional experience was a software engineering manager. And when I started, like putting in a Trello board, all the stuff that I thought, that maybe I should do, I quickly understood that it was a lot of work, and there is a lot of work related to psychological aspects, like a lot of them, from management, leadership, coaching, like mentorship and interrelated, and also like the professional career, engineering ladder, one-to-ones. That there is a lot of things where a psychological perspective and deep knowledge would help me a lot doing that work. So that was my first decision, was to hire someone with this strong background in psychology background and experience. And the company was happy, told me that if that was what I thought, it would be nice, but she doesn't know how to code, right?
Yeah.
I said, no, she doesn't come here to help us coding. but comes here to help come here to help us a lot in other topics, in a lot of other topics, so we can focus more even on coding, you know, or in software development. And that was a really nice experience, and I think that will be the standard pretty soon, like the same way as in the sports. You know, like 20 years ago, thinking about a psychologist in a team was like weird, and now there is not only one psychologist, there's a full team of psychology, you know, working with them. The same will happen in software, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, you know, I think we take knowledge work too lightly, because it's knowledge work. It's not just going there and writing some code on a keyboard. It's a lot about understanding each other, understanding how we feel, understanding what we communicate. And then you have business, you have technical stuff, all the tools, all the practices that you need to know in order to deliver quality software. So, but I think the first part is often forgotten, because, you know, people still treat software development as a factory.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is pretty clear, but maybe it's good to point it out explicitly in this conversation for the people who don't have it clear. And I think that, Adi, you agree with me here, but feel free to correct or remark something afterwards if you want. But yeah, the situation of the industry regarding to this is horrible, you know, and I think that you, Adi, and me both probably are in a bubble.
Yeah.
Let's say a small percentage where, for example, we can choose where we work or what we work on, you know, and that's crazy. But for 95% of the software development jobs out there, those are not environments where someone will love to go to work every day, and those are not psychologically safe environments. They are not environments where people care about these things that we are talking about. And the situation is sad, and I don't know, this is a question to you. How can we do like to make it better as an industry, or we should not worry about the industry and just make our thing in the places that we work with? Or what do you think about this?
I don't know if I can influence the whole industry, but what I have been trying to do is to show organizations that I work with, or well, wider, by, I don't know, doing this conversation, writing a few books or writing blog posts, trying to show that you can be also more effective, and also the environment can be better from all points of view. Also from the point of view of me liking what I do, but also from the point of view of psychological safety and diversity to some extent. So I think typically what I've been doing in my life is trying to give an example and trying to see, look, this works. And if it works here, maybe it works for you too. Try it out.
Do you know what, Adi? Now that you mentioned that, if it works here, probably for you too, is recently introducing psychological safety in an organization where it was not psychologically safe at all and was obvious, you know. One of the responses, you know, I heard was that, because I mentioned that Google and Google identified this as factor number one for high-performing teams. Calling high-performing a team, it's another topic for another discussion. But I mentioned that, and the answer, you know, like the first answer was like, oh, what works for Google might not work for us.
Of course, yeah, but of course, this is a typical blockage when you see something like I for any tool and any technique, right? So if I had this discussion, it was very funny. I make a kind of a deeper parenthesis now, but it was very funny. I was talking in a project management community. I go to those sometimes, shockingly, but I do go there because I think project management is still a skill that you need to learn and understand. And anyway, I was talking about Bjarte Boydnia's Beyond Budgeting. So he's been CFO at Statoil, which is the second biggest oil producer in the world, and he's from Norway, and he's been there like I think for something like 15 years as CFO, and he's implemented this concept that is called Beyond Budgeting. Beyond budgeting means that you don't have an annually budget anymore, but you have a budget based on a smaller project that you need to show that it works, and if it works then you have the second increment and so on. So it's a more like an incremental and iterative thinking into budgeting, into the whole finances of a very big organization. And I was explaining this concept to project managers there, and they were telling me, no, yeah, of course, probably this is a very small company, right? So it works for 20 employees companies. Yeah, sure. Yeah. You know, I don't know how many, I think there are like 40,000 people employed there, and they make I think something like 30 or 40 billion euro per year. And so yeah, this is not a small organization, it's not a small budget, and it works very well. And they were still confused, how can this work? So I think when you come with things that blow people's mind, you know, they have this wall saying, no, it cannot work, because we've been doing things like that for a long time and they work, so they cannot be something else. You know, you change their world too much when you come with these ideas. So that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to come in smaller steps.
Yeah, that's of course now the basics of change, how to introduce change like one at a time and small. Yes. And as you mentioned before, this thing about the budgeting, really interesting. By the way, but yeah, this relates to Linda Rising. We mentioned it yes. Before the recording started, and yeah, she has this excellent talk on experiments, and she's talking about experiments all the time. Also, Richard Sedian from Menlo Innovations, and it's the point. No, at the end of the day, I think that if we apply more and more about the agile way of working, like iterative, I know, small batches, getting feedback as soon as possible, we can apply that to all the areas of a company. And I mean, the top players, the best players do that. And that's for a reason, right? But yeah, as you say, there are a lot of blockers and a lot of changes. So for the people, it's complicated to willing to invest the time and the effort to do so. And as you say, I think it's really important to lead by example. That's also what I am trying to do everywhere I go, and try to show the results. And the point is that the results are there. You know, the results are there. You do a coding dojo, you get the feedback. You do you work in a company, you get the feedback, and you see the numbers. You know, and at the end of the day, we do this to optimize the how do you say, the revenue? Like we are here for money. It's the same thing about TDD or refactoring or simple design or pair programming. This is not, or diversity. You mentioned diversity before, and that's something that I got a lot. You know, I'm helping more and more companies like to create more inclusive environments, also communities, whatnot. And a lot of times the answer is like, I can understand that these people think that they are doing someone a favor, you know?
Yeah.
Doing that. And also in the communities, in the software crafting community, for example, with some people it's crazy, and it's like, no. Diversity makes you smarter, way smarter, and way better, and all of us, you know. And by not being inclusive, we are letting out all these people that would make us way smarter and way better and work better. It's difficult. Like I think, and there are two barriers. One is the understanding of the concept and the willingness to try out, and then there is the execution, you know, like the doubts about how to execute certain things. The conceptual, in my opinion, is the most complex to solve.
Yes, it is, because we have our own knowledge, our own biases, our own previous experiences. So, and it's very difficult to come across this and say, no, this doesn't sound right. So, no.
It's about being open, right? That we mentioned before.
Yeah, I think the programmers, especially the senior programmers I worked with that wanted to learn, were open about what they know and what they don't know. And I think it's the same even with junior programmers. It's very weird that I had experiences with junior programmers who were extremely close. Like I worked with a few that didn't have 1 year of experience, and they were very smug. So I don't know how far you can go with this attitude. How much can you learn with this attitude? That's for me, it's a blocker for your own life.
Completely.
So it's not just for your work, it's for anything in your own life. And but again, you know, I go back to empathy and I say, okay, but probably people are like that because something, I never blame them, which typically I see a lot of people doing. Yeah, you're bad, you don't want to learn, and that's all. They have reasons, so I try to understand what is the reason. If I have more time to work with that person, I would try to understand what are the reasons why they are there.
Well, one of the reasons, going back to the situation of the industry, is the lack of environments where, I don't know, openness, transparency, psychological safety, collaborative work, blameless culture, etc. These are a minimum of the workplaces, right? With people pushing strong in that direction. So that's a pity, because you also have to help people and to give people instruments and resources and environments where they can be open and where they can feel safe, you know, about spending time to learn, about asking questions, about raising concerns. And that's a work of creating a culture, a workplace culture suited for these things. So I don't know, there is an instrument that I have been using recently, which is workshops. There is this woman called Alison Coward. Hi, Alison. That's amazing woman, and has a lot of resources on how to design and facilitate workshops. And she coined this term called workshop culture, and it consists on facilitating workshops in a periodic way. So, you know, like in most places, workshop is like, oh, okay, we have the next workshop in 2 months or 3 months. Next month comes a workshop. So this is not the idea, right? And the idea is to leverage the effectiveness of a well-designed and facilitated workshop, like periodic-wise, like, I don't know, once a week or whatever. That helps a lot creating these kinds of environments where certain values and certain practices and certain attitudes can be encouraged. You know?
Yeah, I agree with that. Wherever I go, I try to have this to at first impose. I know I'm doing that. So I'm coming from a position of power where I impose a rhythm of doing stuff, but I don't impose people to join. Say, yeah, you can go or not, but we will do this. And I know that I will have a few people, because when I start this, I know a few people want to do that, so I will do that. But then I continue working on that. So like you said, weekly, or I don't know, 2 times per month or something like that. And I think after a while it starts becoming either very interesting, or either it dies out because you see that people are not genuinely interested in that. And both of those are a feedback.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think there are important things. For example, in Privacy Cloud, what we had was in our knowledge base, we were using Notion, which have you used Notion, Adi?
No.
You will like it. It's amazing tool. I can highly recommend to give a try. Notion. So we were using Notion, and we have a workshop page for the team where the people were registering ideas, you know, like what are important topics you think that will be nice to make a workshop out of it, you know. And that worked pretty good, because it's the people who is in the team who is deciding what to do in the workshops. Then if you pair that with effective workshop design and facilitation, it's really complicated, I think, to have. I mean, depends also on the kind of people that are in the team or the company, right? But it will be difficult, in my opinion, that people don't see the high value of doing that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that after a while it dies out, because with some topics you just lose all the important topics, or the most of the important topics after a while. So that's why it dies out. It can be because if you have like a very technical topic, maybe you need 5, 6, 7, 8 iterations, and then you covered most of it. That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
take design patterns, you know, or solid principles. I don't know. That's a limited thing. It will die out.
I don't think also there is this idea, for example, of doing something and starting with something and boo and poof,
Yeah.
extenuate something until the limit. I don't think that that's the way people have fun.
No, of
in
course.
general.
No, it's true.
So, for example, in this company, they were having a book club, which is an amazing, amazing idea. Weekly book club, a 1 hour learning time.
Yeah.
All good. So they were reading one book at a time. You know, they have this GitHub repository, and they were suggesting one book. They start, and I don't know, 1 week chapter 1, the next week chapter 2, etc., etc. When I arrived to the company, everyone was so bored with the book that they were reading, you know, and you could feel it, and it was book club. Oh, that
we
book,
need again to read.
Yeah. It's like, oh, that dry book, you know, that it's crazy. So I suggested quickly after jumping in and seeing that, like, not excitement and looking forward, you know, to the reading club, I suggested to use extreme reading. You know, you have heard about extreme reading. It's a facilitation technique that allows you to read 2 books in 1 hour in a collaborative way, okay, for groups and that stuff. So okay, let's try. So everyone brings a different book to the book club, you know, so everyone reads what they want to read, and then there is a exchange round where you get the opportunity to read the stuff from one of the other books in the session. That had a huge impact, you know, like the people were looking forward to go to that book club again.
Of course.
Is the pain, and so is the point, and there are infinite books, so that's why I don't see this
for this,
I don't really understand this.
For this is true, and I think what you mentioned again, this is again empathy, right? So you try to understand what's hurting people, and then you change the environment, you shift a bit the environment so that they can start liking it. So these are like the small bits and pieces that generate the psychological safety that you're talking about. Because, you know, when we talk about psychological safety, I think the issue is that it sounds huge and people don't know where to start it from.
Yeah.
It's like, we want an organization to become safe. What do you do?
Okay, as we were talking before, it's really important to lead by example, right? And it's also important, really important towards diversity topics, intersectionality, etc., to educate yourself first. So you are in a good position to start with something, right? So, for example, in the case of psychological safety, asking questions is an excellent way to show others that asking questions is good, you know, and not only doing that, but also explaining that asking questions is good and the value of asking good questions, and maybe providing some hints about resources on how to ask better questions or why does that matter. So when you introduce that bit, you know, from, I don't know, in this case, management or leader position, again, we're talking about a power position with power. That makes a difference, you know. And then when you start actively listening to the people, as you know, there is a lot of workplaces where the employees, where the people who work there have a lot of ideas on how to improve it. They know about the problems.
Yes.
The company, I don't know, it's not interested in listening that, and it's like until they leave.
They leave, and then they say, oh, they left because they left for a bigger salary. So, but then nobody asks them, why did you do that? Not even an exit interview. I saw that. That was amazing. So people with very big turnovers of personnel, and they didn't have any exit interview. What are you doing? At least ask them why they're leaving. No, because they went there, they give them more money. Are you sure? I don't know. Maybe yes, but maybe no. So
is the point. And there is also not only exit interview, but for example, one-on-ones, right? Here at least and this is crazy because the difference of what I usually live in Berlin, right, and the companies, the level of maturity of most startups there in comparison with the level of maturity of the companies here in Asturias, in a province in the north part of Spain, it's huge. There is a huge gap. There's a huge gap that will take years and years to recover, probably. But the point is that once the role of a software engineering manager here, almost no one know about it, you know.
Yeah.
And is the point that's really important mechanism to listen to the employees, to have a weekly or bi-weekly time to listen them what they care about, what is not going good, how can you help them, etc., and how to incorporate that back into the organization, right? Or to habilitate mechanisms where the people can raise their ideas, like preferably in an open way and transparent way, and these ideas and try to improve. So this is highly related with continuous improvement, right? Continuous improvement, psychological safety, you put that together and slowly walk that way. And in my opinion, call me crazy, I don't know what you think, but it's so easy to go towards these directions. It's not rocket science, or I don't know.
Yeah, but you mentioned these one-on-ones. I think there are two things here. You need to have heard about them, first of all, and I think many managers didn't. And secondly, you need to know how to perform them well. And then you need to care about taking the time to do that. So I saw those are like the three areas or the three steps that you need to take. What I found that is very weird is that most managers don't want to take the time.
Really?
Yeah. So it's always, oh, I'm too busy for that.
But what they are there for them.
Yeah, so this is going a bit back to psychological safety and having a workplace, an environment. I think you need, if you want to change a workplace like that, and even going deep at a higher level about the whole industry, I think we need to start having empathy, right? If you don't have empathy, how can you start understanding what your personnel, your employees need, and how can you start understanding how to change it? So I think we focus way too much on technical stuff and not enough on human stuff. That's one of the big the diseases of the industry.
Yeah, but even more sad, taking into account that, as you said, that we focus more on the technical side. I don't know, but the technical side of things doesn't look way better.
Yeah, but I'm not talking here about tools. I'm talking here about using the new platform of, I don't know, I don't want to say names necessarily because they're good platforms, or the new source control, or the new web framework, the new, this is what I'm talking about. We need a new system to replace the old 10-year system. So these are the discussions, the technical discussions that take place, not necessarily on quality, but on, well, this is so bad, it won't work in a year, so we need to change it.
Yeah, it's the point. And what the companies, or a lot of companies, don't understand yet, but more and more do, which that's why I am so optimistic and positive, is because it's crazy, in the last 10 years, like it goes towards this, and the results are there, and now there's numbers and data, so it's all looking good in that direction, but it's slow for the industry. But what people don't understand is a lot of these discussions and problems in the technological side might be the result of not having the human structures in place, for the people to speak up, like to listen, to be empathetic or whatever, because maybe with that structures in place, we don't need to solve this problem, because 2 years ago the people would have talked openly about this issue, and someone will have brought this to attention.
Yes, exactly. I was talking to a big organization with their top management, and I was telling them, look, you're looking too much at costs. So you're saying we have at this cost, but you're not necessarily looking at the whole picture. So I think that the issue with most managers is that they don't look at the system, and they still had big turnover on people, on employees, and the cost to bring more people is huge. But then when you said, look, we need maybe some people who are specialized in psychology to coach their managers or their, I don't know, scrum masters or whatever, to talk about these topics, then they would say no, it's too expensive.
Yeah, I feel you.
So that's very weird in a way, because they look at costs and they don't look at value or at the whole picture. So we need to start from here.
Yes. And this, you are talking about the bigger picture. You are talking about systems. I think that we need to mention here systems thinking, right?
Yeah.
And all these bits that we are talking, and they are not software at all, you know, like continuous improvement, like psychological safety, like workshop culture, like now systems thinking. In my opinion, I think it's what makes the difference. You know, as we were talking, because it puts the frame around everything that we do, and that's really important. So systems thinking is key. I think is key in anything, developing software, picking up apples, or whatever, you know. And just to try to give a brief explanation, which will be probably wrong, but for the people who are listening and they are not familiar with the term, is to try to understand things as systems that belong to other systems. So it's a collection of interrelated systems which makes the whole thing. So maybe if you observe a problem in system A, only by touching something in the interrelated system D, you will be able to fix it or to improve it, you know, and not necessarily touching anything on system A, but to observe and to understand all these relations between the systems. This is something that is not, in my opinion, or at least in the education that I have received here in Spain, university, and all the way up there, it's something that the teachers didn't explain to me at all, you know, or we have talked or we have done exercises on this, and here I think is where all the problems start in the education that we receive.
Yeah, so it's also a social aspect. I think how we are educated, and this is, I think, a very big topic. We are educated to have a job, and quite often you should, well, parents and school and society tells you should go to that job and do what you're told. Nobody, at least in school, nobody told me that you should go there and state your opinion.
Or try to make things better, yeah.
Yeah. So how can you have a better software development industry if you don't have this? So we're going back to basic human, I don't know, concerns.
This is the point. It's all about humans. We are humans. Some people maybe don't want to think about it too much, but we are humans, and this is really, really important what we are talking about. And not only this thing about you must have a job and do this, but also like I don't know, you are in the university here and you have to these crazy workloads every week, you know, for this crazy amount of subjects. So they don't allow the participants to do experiments on their own, to play with the subjects, to see what they like the most or not. They are fully busy doing homework and assignments, you know. And and they are preparing, in my opinion, they are preparing them to do crazy, insane amounts of workload without complaining, because they are used to, you know, from the education.
Exactly.
So if you compare that with another, you know, like environment in the university where all these topics that we are talking about, Adi, this afternoon are covered and are, you know, engaging activities with workshop culture, psychologically safe and whatnot, what will be the effect in the lives of those people? Yeah,
that would be amazing. That's what I'm thinking about. And it's interesting not only to see from the human point of view, but from an economical point of view, how much more effective you'd be. So again, I'm touching this, saying that it's going to be a win-win.
But it's completely, and there is a lot of literature, you know, like 2-3 years ago when I started working for Trendy, like a small consultancy in Berlin, I started working as a software and innovation lead consultant, right? So that was kind of new for me. I had only worked for software so far in my life, so I focused a lot on studying the basics of innovation management, right? Wow, it's crazy. And at the end, if you think about it, it might come handy to know about innovation to apply to software development, right? So
Sure.
this is mostly what we are trying to do, and it's again and again these very same things about the basics of human and human collaboration and human communication and empathetic point of view and human-centered. It's again and again going back to the same, and still, I don't know, it's like a minor topic and even called soft skills, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I think it's soft because it's not hard. That's the reason, right? So
could be, yeah.
It's the hard skills. Like, I think it goes back to medieval times in a way, because it will be the hard skill, like, I know, knowing how to process iron, or that's hard. So it's hard skill.
I have no idea what is the origin actually about the soft versus hard skills, but
well, yeah, that's the idea, that hard is the thing that you work with your hands. That's what I know, at least.
Yeah, okay.
I may be mistaken, but then we started especially after the industrial revolution, we started having unions and so on, and then you had other topics. So the other topics are not soft, are not hard anymore. It's not like working in a factory, so it's soft. It's kind of silly,
exactly.
but
I don't know if I could give an advice or a recommendation, will be to everyone, software engineering that is listening or whatever, to stop, like, I don't know, let's say for the next 2-3 months, like, stop learning new APIs, stop learning new programming languages, whatever, and invest that time only to read about the stuff that we have talked about here, I don't know, public speaking. Really important also a negotiation, salary negotiation, right? Is one topic that worries me about the industry. Yeah, these two things, like public speaking / communication and salary negotiation, right? Also, like, I don't know, trying to understand how to create a culture of continuous learning and these kind of things. Wow, like the impact to learn about these things is huge.
It's huge. And I try to explain not only about the salary negotiation, but about negotiation generally, because especially when you're doing product development in software, you sometimes need to negotiate. So you have these forces. Yeah, you have business, then you have maybe investors, maybe you have some programmers, maybe you have some testers, maybe you have some people from operations, and I don't know, and they all have a bit of their interest there. So in order to make everything work well, you need to start being able to negotiate and not be extremely narrow in your view, say, no, I will do this now because I need to do it. Because if everybody will do that, you'll never deliver. So sometimes you're gonna say, okay, we don't have the quality that we like, but we'll deliver and then we'll improve it. Or, yeah, okay, we don't have the best tools now for continuous deployment, but we'll still deliver a bit manually, but then we'll improve it. So how you negotiate that so that everybody is more or less okay, or as I like to say, you negotiated well when everybody is annoyed in the same way. So
yeah, exactly.
It's important to negotiate. I don't think in life, yes, exactly. I don't think in life you need to take things like this black or white. You often need to negotiate things.
That's yeah, I mean, Kent Beck is always doing this with the hands and talking about trade-offs, right?
Yes, trade-offs, exactly. And when I'm teaching, especially with programmers, or even I think more with architects, in fact, but also with senior programmers, I'm typically talking about design options, architecture options. Sometimes I'm saying, look, both of these are right, and it's like shocking. How can both be right? This is real life. It's not like in college or, I don't know, in school. Sometimes you can have two options that are equally good. And it's puzzling for them how you can choose and not be perfect. I don't know, trade-offs. This is complex life.
This is an important point, this thing about doing something and then improving it, which comes natural for some of us who have been working in those kinds of environments and enjoying the benefits of working that way, you know, for years. Wow, that puzzles like a lot of people.
It's not perfect. How can it do something that's not perfect? It's bad. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Like, yeah, if we would have spent 2 more months thinking about how to do it, we are pretty sure that it would have been better. I say,
yeah,
are you joking? Like, let's do something and then go for it, you know. It's difficult, and you spend also a lot of energy trying to explain this kind of work to people outside of the agile mindset. And I think that, I don't know, maybe it's that I don't know the proper resources to teach this to people outside of software engineering circles and bits, but it's really difficult, at least for me. It takes a lot of energy, and even trying, you know, applying visual thinking, applying different ways of communicating it and explaining and whatever, it's really difficult. So as you said, there are walls when you try to introduce certain ways of working. There are walls, natural walls, and wow, it's sometimes it takes a lot of energy to break that walls. And if you are not 200% interested in doing that, you will say, okay, do whatever you want at some point, I think, because it's a question of energy.
I try to use very simple words, so I also recommend this to many technical people. Don't use jargon. Don't use words that come from a specific book or from a specific concept. Use the simplest words, the words that anyone can understand. And in a moment where we can explain something like that in a minute or two, I think anyone can start thinking if they want to do that or not. It's their choice, right? But my job is to explain them what that is and to give them options.
Yeah, I mean, it depends also what is your role or what is your job.
Well, yeah, exactly. But typically that's my job. So to try to explain options and sometimes even to convince them to go to a certain direction or not. But sometimes, you know, you cannot take, even when you do coaching or training, and you have this position of power where, I don't know, top management told everybody you should hear this guy out. But you shouldn't use that position of power like that, because things won't work. So you need to understand what they want, what people want, what they need. And this is why I'm offering options. But when offering options, I need to be very clear about what they are, pros, cons, and then see what they think is better, because they know their context a lot better than me, of course. So
let's go into the basics, right? Like to listen to the people that work in a place or are in contact with the stuff that you want to improve or you are thinking about improving.
But this is another approach, like not necessarily, you know, listening is very useful, but it's very difficult to listen to understand the whole context, a very complex context, let's say, of a very big organization. So on the other side, what I'm doing is I'm trying to give them options, saying, look, this, this, and this, and this. What do you think? And then they start saying, this doesn't work because this doesn't, maybe this works. And this goes, in this way you go a lot faster.
Again, I think it's important, the difference between the potential roles of doing this kind of job, right? Because if you are as an external consultant, it also depends on the relation that you have with that specific team or that with a specific client, or what are you being hired for, or whatever. And then if you are inside, you know, like I don't know, if you are starting a new culture or a new workplace with strong cultural values, like from scratch or whatever. Or if you are trying to change an organization that might have identified that maybe the things are not going I mean, there are different aspects there, and I think that different approaches should be taken into account. But always, I think that always is important to listen and to understand the people, because what might work to convince or to explain something to someone might not work to explain that very same thing to someone else, right? So it's really important, this ability to adapt. And for that, again, we are going back to the empathy, and we are going back. You mentioned before that you go to product management meetups.
Yeah,
I go to any kind of meetup, and it's amazing, like to the different points of view and perspectives. And I think that helps a lot when you are negotiating, as we were talking about before, when you are communicating. I also mentioned before about not using jargon, etc. And again, this relates with the beginning of our conversation about traveling and meeting people and talk with people, you know, because the more data points that you have, the more dots that you collect, the more possibilities you have to connect dots, as Steve Jobs said later on. So,
yeah, I think that what I want to say is, what I'm trying to do is try to explain topics from my world, as you said, from my bubble, to people that are not at all related. So to friends who do, I don't know, jobs extremely different, like management in totally different industries, like cars, or lawyers, or psychologists, or architects, and so on. And I try to explain them what I'm doing. And if I can make them understand the concept, so in a few minutes they can understand a bit about the concept, it means I know how to explain it. So this is my way of trying to get feedback, because if I go to a, I don't know, agile conference and explain something, it will be a lot easier for them, and that's not a good feedback for me, right? And when you go to an organization where they don't know anything about these things, they will be like my friend architect who doesn't know anything.
Yeah, it makes a complete sense. It's also a good way to practice for talks, right? For specific audiences or whatever, to call some friends or whatever, not even related with software at all, and say, hey, do you have like 1 hour this afternoon or whatever this week? Like I want to present you something, and that feedback is gold. Is gold, of course, like to help adapting the conversation. But yeah, a lot of things we have mentioned in this conversation, Ali.
Yes, of course. I like going from one to the other, because I think all these are related, and they all consist in being a human, which is the purpose of this channel. But still, we're like 1 hour, a bit more than 1 hour. How should we end this?
How should we end? I mean, I am a big fan, as you know, of having fun. So I think that we should have some fun, or more fun even.
Of course. What would you think that, or what is for you the most fun activity now, in this moment?
I don't know. Let's play some music.
Play some music. Yeah, I don't know that. I'm not skilled on that. I just listen to music. So.
What do you mean that you are not skilled at
playing music?
Tracks?
You mean playing music? I don't play any instrument.
No, it isn't, but we can just select the track and press the click button and say good vibe with that good vibes in the background. I know. What do you think? What will be fun for you?
Oh, I typically do things that would be outside of this environment, like hiking or gardening or tinkering, carpentry, things like that. So
there is so many beautiful things to do, but the point I think is about having the fun is that most of us forget that we can have fun doing anything.
Yes.
And that's important. I mean, and when I say that, of course, we haven't talked about privilege in this conversation. I would like to bring it. Privilege.
Oh, privilege. Yeah.
Privilege.
Yes.
My Spanish pronunciation of English.
Yeah, sure. No worries.
Sorry, mate. So yeah, privilege, and it's really really important to talk about it, because we are talking about choosing the work that we want to do. We are talking about choosing the right environment, or changing jobs to get a bigger pay or whatever. And as we know, like most folks in this world, in this planet, cannot do that, unfortunately. So it will be really difficult to sell to these people that they can have fun, in the work. But I think that we are fortunate enough, and when I say we, I mean all people working in software-related business or stuff, to be able to do that. And so it's even more sad that we are not using that privilege to change things for the better, and to try to improve things, and to bet for these kind of workplaces and these cultures. So yeah, I think that in our world it should make sense that you have fun while working, and if you don't have fun in one place working, think about it twice, because there is something going wrong.
I cannot say anything more than that. I just can say thank you for joining me in this discussion that was on many topics. And as I like to end this typically is, don't forget to be human.
Thank you very much, Adi. I will try not to forget it, at least for 1 or 2 days. Then let's see. Thank you very much for inviting me. It has been my pleasure. And yeah, keep in touch. Always happy to talk about anything. Okay.
It was really nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adi. Take care. Ciao.
Ciao.